We're going to be joined by Kevin Lehman in just a moment as we get our technology in line, but Eurodisco continues with Born to Be Alive. It's got such a distinct sound, such a distinct era, and short-lived, meteoric, but man, was it a lot of fun, and it's influenced music to this day. March Madness is here. March Madness is upon us. The conference tournaments for the women last week and for the men this week has been full of excitement. One of the great games, if you watched last night, and of course I'm always an Iowa homer, but the Iowa State University Cyclones were playing against the University of Arizona. Tommy Lloyd, ex-Gonzaga Bulldog assistant coach, came to Edmonton many times, but exciting, literally one of the closest buzzer beaters I've ever seen, Kevin Lehman, in that ending last night to one of the top teams, and I think one of the favored teams in going into March Madness is, of course, Arizona. But Iowa State just keeps nipping at their heels, and they demonstrated last night that on a given night they're capable of beating just about anybody.
Well, Iowa State, their defense is elite. Where they struggle is their half-court offense. When Milan Momcilovic is hitting threes, they're hard to beat.
28 last night. He had a night. And then they got a nice performance from Jefferson, another one of their really good players. But Iowa State had it shows how tough the Big 12 is. But I'd say, Kevin, you're a long-time Division I coach. You're a long-time Division I broadcaster. You have a son or sons that play Division I basketball. You coach Nick Nurse. Like, you've got such a rich, deep history. And but talk about the tough conferences this year that you've watched and what's impressed you about the depth of good teams in these conferences.
Well, what's happened because of the transfer portal, if they have a need for a certain position, you can go out in the portal and do that. Plus, we talked about this before, Paul, you've got players that are staying in college rather than being a second-round pick or going to Europe to play. They'd rather not play in the G League on a two-way contract. They can make more money in college. So we're seeing more older players in the college level. We're seeing more experienced players, and we always know through history that that's what makes teams better. I think I saw today where SEC only one player on senior night had actually been in his school for 4 years.
Wow.
So that's how much movement there is in college basketball.
Holy smokes. That's an insane statistic because the pendulum was completely the opposite way in the past when transferring was so difficult and restrictive. And now the freedom of movement, like you point out, and then the money itself. That's a topic for another time for us, Kevin. We've touched on that before. So I'd like to kind of run through a few conferences and get your take on them. First, I'm going to start with the Big 12. You've got Arizona at the top of the heap, but Houston is very, very good. They're playing now. It is the conference final today, right? Between Arizona and Houston. That's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
But you've got Iowa State, you've got Kansas, and you've got the depth of teams within the Big 12 is, I don't know, is the right term not just applying to the Big 12, but is the right term in general, Kevin, historic in terms of depth of top tier, tough, competitive teams?
Yeah, Paul, at the top level it is. Yeah, it's more competitive at the top level. Now, I think you're seeing out the bottom, there's some teams that aren't as good because they can't compete in that area we're talking about. But, you throw BYU in there with A.J. Devonza. They've got one of their better players hurt, but they're also capable of beating anybody because of
that's a great
he's going
point.
to be the 1 or 2 pick. So if he goes off, I saw BYU dismantle Iowa State when they
absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah, so that's what you see. If you get hot at the right time, anything can happen. Because as my old coach used to say, we don't have to be better than 40 minutes or for the whole season. We just have to be better for that last 40 minutes. But I think I'm not a real fan of Kansas. I don't trust them. I've just seen too many flaws with that team. But here's what I like about Arizona. They're old school. They don't shoot a lot of threes. They're going to attack the paint. They're big. They're physical. They're not like an Alabama team that's going to try to get 10 to 14 threes on you. So that's a little different than we've seen in the past of teams being successful in this new wave of shooting threes, getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. And the other team that you're talking about center is Houston is very unique also in that I've listened to the coaching tapes of Kelvin Sampson, and his philosophy is I can shoot 35% and still beat you because I'm going to get 14 or 15 offensive rebounds. I'm going to have 10 more possessions than you're going to have. So shooting percentage is not a big factor in their game plan. It's how many times can we turn you over, how many offensive rebounds. Basically, I use the term how many more bites of the apple can they get shots on goal than the other team.
Well, and one of the things about Houston that is so effective is they turn you over, but I forget what their deflection stat is, but it's pretty remarkable. Their attention to detail at the highest level in terms of how they defend, how they rebound, how they crash the board. They're just so mindful in the minutia of defense, and those little things like deflections through the course of a 40-minute game make a huge difference, don't they?
Well, yeah, no question. Because I think what you're seeing now, if you look at Kim Palm studies, you got to be in the top 15 in the nation in defensive efficiency to be a Final Four team and to win a national championship. If you're not efficient there anymore, you just won't be successful, won't be able to make it through that 6-game or 5 games to get there, 4 games to get there to the Final Four. So I think more coaches are starting to adapt that area, that you have to be really solid at the defensive end.
Let's jump over to the Big Ten, Kevin. You've done a lot of broadcasting on the Big Ten Network, and of course, you're being in Iowa City. You're around the Big Ten all the time. The Big Ten, how good is Michigan? Are they a serious contender for the national championship, in your opinion?
No question. I think there's 3 teams: Arizona, Michigan, and Duke. And Florida's closing fast. I think there's some separation after you get past those 4. So, yeah, Michigan with their size, Yaxel Lundenberg, who's a great story, Paul. You got to study this guy. His mother made him go to a junior college to play.
Give us the story. Give our listeners a story, because it is a fascinating one.
I think he went to like New Mexico JUCO somewhere, and then he was recruited by UAB. Andy Kennedy has been known, the UAB coach, who was at Ole Miss. He's always found great JUCO players. So I called their games at the Paradise Jam 2 years ago, and he was playing for UAB. And at that time, he was approaching, I think he might have stayed there 2 years. And then he got this, the transfer portal to go to Michigan. But this is a 6'9", point forward, skills, assist man, can score inside and out. Very unique young man. But think about that, his mother forced him to go play at a junior college. Where would he be today? Now he's going to be, maybe a top 10 draft pick.
Well, it's one of the interesting things about the pathways that individual athletes take, Kevin, and you've seen this so often through your career. There is no sure pathway forward. Like, you think, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to a blue blood program, that's going to be my shot at the NBA. They put, like, let's say Kentucky, who's not particularly good, Kentucky-esque this year, but, typically they've been like a factory for so many great NBA players. That really has changed. The pathway to the NBA right now is very, very different. And it's going to get more and more different with all of the changes that have taken place in the college basketball landscape, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing this year, Paul, they're saying this is the best freshman class in college basketball that will enter the draft than we've seen in decades. With Darren Peterson at Kansas, A.J. Devonza that we've talked about at BYU, and Cam Boozer at Duke, the guard at Illinois that's a freshman has come out of nowhere to play well. So there's the guard on the name escapes right now. Houston's got a freshman guard too.
I think it's Freeman, right?
Yeah, top 10 picks.
Oh, and man, is he good? Like, that kid's
it's
good.
And the Illinois young man, I'm trying to think of his name right now, Wagler.
Yeah,
Wagler's another guy that was not highly recruited out of high school.
I think it was ranked like 260 something.
Yeah. A long, thin kid, and they were watching another guy and liked him. I go back to John Morant. John Morant was picked up by Murray State when he went to a back gymnasium at an AU to watch another player, and they saw John Morant. And he becomes, number 2 or 3 pick. So there still are those great stories of guys that kind of fall through the cracks. And when I coached at Northern Iowa, Elder Miller always said, you got to find players, especially at that level, the Missouri Valley level, find players that become better college players than they are high school guys. Guys are still growing, still maturing. they got parts of their game that you like, and they just need some more physicality, some more maturity. So you really had to look for guys like that, because the good ones are easy to see, but the guys that are going to be good in 5 years, those ones you're trying to find. But the problem now at the mid-major level, Paul, is you can't keep them. You find the diamond in the rough, and you won't be able to keep them. Yaxel Lundenberg's a great example of that.
Well, and I think, and we touched on this the last time we talked, Kevin, but you can see it coming to fruition now. We really have a tiered class now of JUCO no longer counts against your college eligibility. Low to mid majors and even D2 schools are, and you know what? Even Canadian schools are now becoming recruiting ground for the high level blue blood top 60 Division I programs. Because like you said, you can get a great player in, but you can't keep them because they're going to make more money by moving up the food chain.
Yeah, and also seeing the mid-majors are starting to take players from the NCAA level.
Yes.
And the Division II level. So, it's just a trickle effect. And it's very interesting to watch how this happens. Because I did the Missouri Valley tournament. There's a number of talented players that had played NCAA, and they were getting their extra year of eligibility. So they were fifth-year guys. So, Paul, not only had they had great experience playing, 1,000-point scores, but they were older now. They were 23 years old because they had played 4 years and got that extra year of eligibility.
It's just, man, oh, man, that's a whole 2-hour discussion in and of itself. And even then, you'd just be starting to talk about the tip of the iceberg. Going back to the Big Ten, when you go past Michigan, it's really kind of this almost sounds like a derogatory term, but I mean it in a complimentary way. It becomes a dog's breakfast log jam of pretty good to quite good teams. When you look at a team like, say, Michigan State, for instance, good basketball team. Ohio State, they played Michigan really tough yesterday.
Yeah,
they're good. The Hawkeyes, they're kind of a one-man band this year. They're they've had a great year for Ben McCollum in his first year there. I think it's a good building block, but they really depend completely on Sturtz for being successful, and they really struggled in the Big Ten because there's just so much talent. But even Wisconsin beat a good Illinois team yesterday. They just have a lot of really good teams.
And if you look at them, I think, you get past Michigan, you start to see the other ones have a few more warts the more you see them.
Right.
Like Illinois is really, they're huge. They've got 6 players from European players, Eastern or Western Europe, but they're not really good defensively. So they've had some problems there.
Right.
And so if you look at each of those, there's some issues. And Wisconsin's a 3-point shooting team. So if they don't make threes, which is, Paul, so weird because back in the Bull Ryan days, Wisconsin was a walk it up, run that flex offense. Now they just fly up and down and shoot threes. It's crazy.
Dick Bennett is spinning in his grave right now because that was a real quick story. And I think I talked about this with someone else on a recent interview, but my high school coach went to Dick Bennett basketball clinic, and Dick Bennett came out and said, I think it was 16 principles of defense. Hour and a half into it, he was just barely through principle number 2 because he was just such a defensive-minded, hold the ball kind of guy. And now you have Wisconsin, which is kind of wide open. So your point is well taken. Live and dying by the 3 in Wisconsin, that just is complete. That's bizarro world stuff.
And those teams are dangerous because they get hot in a certain night, knocking 14, 15 threes.
Absolutely.
You got problems.
And they've shown they can play with anyone, and then they can die on the vine against teams that you would expect them to beat because their heavy reliance on the 3.
Yeah, and, another team in the Big Ten, Nebraska, with Fred Hoiberg.
Oh my gosh,
unbelievable job there. Think about this: a year ago, Paul, Nebraska and Iowa playing a game to see who got eliminated from the Big Ten tournament, because last year only took 15 of the 18 teams. This year they went back to 18. Nebraska got beaten that game. They went to the Crown tournament, eliminated from the Big Ten postseason tournament, went to the Crown that year, won it, and then he strung together a bunch of wins to start this season. I think they ran 18 games in a row or 20 going back to last season. So them losing that game actually helped them gain momentum for this year. And, you being from Iowa, Fred Hoiberg, we still call him the mayor affectionately. I recruited Fred when he was in high school. That was the most solid person you'd ever be around. And so I'm happy for him. And the story with his son, playing and being such an effective player for him is another great story.
It really is. I'm talking with Kevin Lehman, longtime Division I broadcaster here on Hoop City with Paul Sir. We're going to take a real quick break right now. And Kevin, I assume you're able to stay for a few more minutes with me?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry for getting on late. I had a little trouble with your Zoom connection.
Well, you know what? We got all this highfalutin technology up here in Canada, Kevin. So, no, we'll take a break right now. We'll come back with Kevin. We'll talk more March Madness here on Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick on your sports leader, Sports 1440. Kevin, maybe you'll appreciate this. Every week when I do the show, I try to do a musical theme. So today it's Euro disco. So I'm bringing in all the old disco tunes. But anyway, that might be a little before your time. I'm not quite sure. Okay, so Kevin, let's talk about the ACC. Duke is really good. Now, Cameron Boozer projected to be one of the top 3 picks. Mm-hmm. You watch him play, really impressive guy. But the one thing I would say about Duke, this is kind of my theory. Duke has this kind of traditional habit of not being able to defend consistently at the highest level. And I don't mean this in a condescending way at all, but they seem to have this tradition where when they get into the NCAA tournament, they get undermined sometimes because I think their defense breaks down a little bit. Do you see any weaknesses in the Duke defense this year? I mean, Boozer is a magnificent player. He's got a great supporting cast around him. But is that a potential flaw in the Blue Devils?
Well, I think that's a good point, Paul, if you look at their numbers and so forth. But they're playing Virginia for the championship of the ACC. And there's another program that's kind of come back to the forefront since you mentioned Tony Bennett and Dick Bennett, Tony's retirement. But
right,
yeah, with Duke, I've never been a big fan of Duke, and I'm just not a Dookie. I think a little bit overhyped, so I've always kind of been against them. But that program is so good that you can never count them out, and you can always pencil them in at least to your Elite 8, if not the Final 4. But I think they're a Final 14 this year. I think with Boozer, if you look at his record, I mean, all he's ever done is won, whether it's AAU, high school. He's just a winner, and I think he has the ability to carry his team on his shoulders. Whether good enough defensively, I think it's what we talked about before. To be elite in this day and age, you got to have an elite defense if you're going to be a Final 4 team. So that's a great point. That's something I'm going to watch throughout this when we fill out our brackets. But I really think those top 4 seeds we talked about, I think it's going to be chalk again. I just think there's a separation between those teams and the next level of this line of 2 seeds.
And it's interesting you say that because at the beginning of the year and even about midway through the season, a lot of people were talking about, there's 12 to 16 teams that could win it this year. But you're right. Now the cream really has risen to the top, and the top teams are extremely good. I'm looking forward to the game today between Duke and Virginia because Duke absolutely decimated Virginia. But it was at Duke, and playing in Cameron is one of the weirdest environments to play in. It's like, it's like playing in a high school gym relative to the NCAA Division I atmospheres that you have. And when it unravels teams, they really fall apart. So now in a neutral site, it's going to be interesting to see how Virginia gathers itself again, and to see if they're able to compete with the Blue Devils.
Yeah, that's a great point. You always wonder how important is the tournament championship to teams like this who already have their seed line established. Like Iowa State got beat yesterday, that last second shot by Arizona. So are they better off getting an extra day's rest before they have to play Thursday or Friday next week? So that's always a question. Sometimes you'll see those teams make that great run, the NCAA tournament, that exited their conference tournament early because that extra rest is a big factor.
It really is. And that is a great point because sometimes you see the Cinderella team that plays 6 games to win a conference tournament, and then when the first round comes around, they're just absolutely exhausted. I think of a Syracuse team a number of years ago under Boeheim that did that. They had a remarkable run in a pretty mediocre season, got into the NCAA, and absolutely got blown out of the water in the first round. But
now, the opposite story is UConn in 2011 with Kemba Walker.
Yes.
Who made a 5-game run through through the Big East tournament. Then I think they even won a national championship that year. And the reason I bring it up is I don't know if you followed Missouri Valley, Northern Iowa. They won the Valley tournament as a 6th seed. So they had to play on the Thursday night. In the 30 years of that league playing a 4-game format, no team has ever done that.
Yes.
And that was what Ben Jacobson, when he lost at home against Illinois State, knowing they have to play on the Thursday, what we call the play-in game, the next day, his genius, he pulls out the Kemba Walker tapes of UConn and says, this is going to be us. And they did it.
Well, and speaking of UNI, I believe they're still in the Missouri Valley hunt, aren't they, right now? Are they in the semis or are they in the finals?
No, I called those games last week. They won the championship last Sunday on that. They made that 4-game run, Paul.
Oh, that's right. Jeez. Too many tournaments, too old.
Here's the best thing. Look at Lenardi's bracketology today. He has UNI as a 13 seed against Kansas as a 4 seed. So think back to 2010, Ali Frokmanesh.
That's right.
When UNI beat Kansas to go to the Sweet 16 on that famous shot by Ali Frokmanesh. The NCAA, I'd love to see him do that because do have a sense of humor.
It really does. And it's such a great storyline, and there's so much serendipity in what you just described. And that's a great segue into my next question I wanted to ask you, Kevin. You broadcast a lot of mid-major basketball. Is UNI one of the mid-majors that has a shot at upsetting a much higher-seeded team? And in addition to that, if it's not UNI, who are other mid-majors that you think could pull off a first-round victory?
Well, if you're filling out your bracket, you want a little bracketology from it, yes. In Northern Iowa, and here's why. They are number 1 in the country in least points allowed. So they're a defensive team. Low possessions. They're going to be in the 60s. Also, they're top 10 in the country in least turnovers. They turn over like 9.4 times per game. So it's going to be a slow-paced game. If you turn it over, it's going to be magnified because there's fewer possessions. So that's the type of team that can win games. Plus, they're elite at defending the 3-point line, and they're elite at defending 2-point shots. So it's and they don't foul either. So all those markers that you talk about, they're there now, and they were picked second in the preseason poll. They had injuries all year. Now they're healthy. So that's a great recipe for a team to at least get 1 win, if not 2. I don't know if they have enough. There's such a talent gap between the mid-majors and the higher powered ones if they can get a second one. But certainly a team to pencil in as a first round win if they have the right matchup.
Well, if they do play Kansas, a couple of interesting thoughts. I would think, I don't know this for a fact, but I would think Bill Self has aged about 10 years this year with Peterson on his team. Yeah. That has to be absolutely maddening to have a kid like that who is so conditional, so talented, should be a great NBA player, but so very good, but so conditional in when he wanted to play. Boy, oh boy, are we seeing the onion getting peeled in new directions in the NCAA. And if anything, I think this sets the table for even more of this this is my term, Kevin, more of this nonsense to start taking place at the collegiate level where guys they're going to be dictating to their coaches and their programs of when they bring their talents to their particular program, they're going to have set out what their expectations are of how they're going to be handled. But where I'm going with my rant here, Kevin, is I'm really looking forward to and hoping this works out because I would love to see UNI's defense going against such an elite talent like Peterson.
All these players have agents. There's even kids now with high school agents. And I'm going to point right back here. I don't know if you can see that. That's the Sports Illustrated poster of Ali Frokmanesh when he hit the shot over Kansas. So he signed that for me. And I bought that at a fundraiser, Northern Iowa. So it's it's on my wall of fame here.
So are there any other mid-majors that you would pick and you would say, watch these guys? I think they have a shot in the first round because they're a good team relative to the ratings of the conference that they might play in.
Well, St. Louis is another team, the A-10, and I know that coach well because he was at Indiana State 2 years ago when they made that run and got left out. and went into the NIT championship, got beat in the championship game. But they're unique too, because if you look at their defensive numbers, they're an NBA model where they shoot a bunch of threes and they try to get to the rim. The NBA model is threes, free throw line, and get what they call rim decisions. You're going to lay it up, you're going to spread out for a three. But they also understand the NBA model. We have to defend the three ball. Don't foul. Don't put teams at the free throw line and take away the three. So they're very good at defending the three ball. And they've got a unique unicorn at center and Ali and Robbie Oliver. We pronounce the name so many different ways. It's been a while since they had to call his games. They call him, they call him Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
and spell cream though.
Yeah, cream. Yeah,
CREAM. For the tone of his skin color,
Avila.
And he
Robbie Avila,
and he followed his coach from Indiana State, where he was outstanding in the Missouri Valley tournament in particular, but just had an outstanding year at Indiana State, and it's done really well.
He was hurt a little bit last year, but I mean, he's a center who can shoot threes. You run the offense through him. It's very unique to watch him play. So that's another team that could get some upsets.
Okay, so your Final Four again is?
I hate to go chalk, but I'm going to go with Michigan, Arizona, and I'm not a big Duke guy, but I got to throw Duke in there. But I think my outlier is going to be Houston. They're a 2 seed, but I think with the experience they had last year that they're going to be back there again.
Yeah, I think, carrying that forward and with the tough-mindedness at Calvin Sampson, who is really impressive in terms of not just his coaching his team, but his messaging to the basketball world about youth basketball development with what I would consider to be more of a tough love messaging as opposed to mollycoddling and cuddling up to AAU mindsets. Like, he's very much about individual development, tough-mindedness, competition. You get better when nobody's looking, like those sorts of principles. Like, he doesn't mince words. Parents, stay away from your kids. Let them play. Don't be hovering over them. Don't be bugging the coaches when you don't like what you see. Like he said, let your kid rise and fall on his or her own merits.
Well, it's interesting, Paul, if you listen to his recruiting philosophy, he doesn't care about the number that they're rated by these scouting services. He never looks at that. The kid he had a couple years ago, Shed, was not ranked. So he looks at deeper where their heart, their work ethic you're talking about, how much time they're going to spend in the gym. And we talked about this, I think, maybe last year, that the model that Iowa State uses when they recruit, your sphere of influence around that player has to be the parents, the high school coach, the AU coach, and that's it. If there's a bunch of other voices there, they will not recruit you because they want them to hear one single voice. That's TJ Otzelberger. So if you look at, that's been a very successful model for them. Because their players really develop and get better. And then also with their NIL money, they invest in the players they have to keep them there rather than going out to buy new players. So it's been a successful model that both Houston has used and that Iowa State has used.
Do you have a couple more minutes? Because I have 2 quick questions.
I got all the time in the world. And we got to talk about Miami of Ohio before we begin too.
Okay, well, let's go to Miami of Ohio. They had an undefeated season, won a lot of games, a lot of very close games to maintain their undefeated status, lost in the conference tournament. So here's my question to you, Kevin: are they going to get an NCAA bid?
All right, here's my answer to that. Because Auburn, we had that discussion. Auburn being or Miami, Ohio. I think they went 31-1.
Yes,
where they're at right now.
Yep.
All right. So if you're the average fan tuning in March. You don't follow basketball all year long, but you're going to follow it in March because everybody does. The office will sweat. Wouldn't you rather watch a team that was 31-0 than a team that went 7-11 in their league? Because that's my argument. I mean, there's more interest, and America's about the underdog. They're
100%.
the underdog. Yeah, so I would think if the community's got any brains at all, that this team has to be in just for the human interest side of it. Rather than let's put another middling team that couldn't finish 500 in their power league. And I keep saying this, I know it will never happen. Can we institute a rule that you got to be at least 500 in your conference if you're a major conference team, which, Big 10, ACC, Big 12, SEC, Big East, to be eligible for the NCAA tournament? Because these 7 and 11 teams that get in, they shouldn't be in the tournament.
I totally agree with you. I think it's one of the most damning aspects of Selection Sunday when you get these borderline major conference teams, like you said, that have losing records, that have really had spotty seasons, but because they're in a power conference and because of the analytics, that's selected over a team that really embodies what's great about the NCAA. They had an unbelievable season filled with a lot of drama. It wasn't like they were a juggernaut that overwhelmed everybody with talent, just happened to have a year where they just were able to purchase more talent that year, as is the case in a lot of major programs. But you got to get Miami of Ohio in for the reasons that you very nicely described there. That embodies what makes the NCAA so watchable.
Right, and I'm afraid we're going to lose that the more we're trying to get these. The power structure at B is setting up the net, the quad system to reward those teams. We always hear, Miami didn't play a quad one game, because that's what the numbers they use. Look at the quad one wins that Auburn has. But then we go back. The other argument is, wasn't North Carolina like the last one in a couple years ago, and they made the run the Final Four? So you have that argument that those teams are better prepared to have success in the tournament. So it's a great fodder to talk about on radio shows and Zoom calls, because it's a great argument to have what sides you're on in that. But I think Miami, they've got to be in. I think if the committee does not put them in, they're going to really hurt the general public viewing of the NCAA tournament.
Totally agree with you, because it just, the rich get richer. You favor the blue blood programs that have all the money and resources in the world. And you look at a mid-major program, which I'm sure has limited resources, like Miami of Ohio. I mean, that goes without saying. But, you look at it with a magnificent season like that, and you're going to not reward them for that kind of effort, for that kind of tradition, for that kind of excitement. The fact that we were talking about them throughout the season and what they were accomplishing, I think that really is a bastardization of what the intent of this is. But never let common sense get in the way of what the NCAA might think they use their analytics for to create the ideal environment and throw them all out the window.
The human interest story always surpasses the analytical numbers.
Totally.
And the eye test and those types of things that we've gone away from. But I think there's so much pressure. There's so much money involved in this tournament that's the way that the committee said, well, the analytics tells this, and that's their out to put together their selection of the teams that they're going to do here on Sunday.
Absolutely. And there will be disappointments on Sunday. Definitely. There always are. So
there's teams hanging right now. They're waiting, because we got bid stealers happening in the A-10. Ole Miss still alive in the SEC tournament. There's a bid steal. There's a couple out there. So it's going to be really interesting. And those teams are on the edge. Oh, boy, it's a long wait till that selection process on Sunday.
That is so true. Final question for you, Kevin. And I'm talking to Kevin Lehman, longtime Division I broadcaster here on Hoop City on the Deep Dive with Paul Scher. I'm going to jump over to women's basketball. And, of course, the Iowa heroine, if you still can use that term, Caitlin Clark. You have the WNBA not having a deal. Kevin, I'll give you my quick opinion. I just cannot imagine a more unprepared league with unprepared management and leadership and ownership about absolutely just laying the biggest egg and simultaneously flirting with killing the goose that laid a golden egg for them in Caitlin Clark. And the rumblings are, and of course you don't know what's fact and what's fiction on social media, but the fairly reliable rumblings are behind the scene that Caitlin Clark's agent has laid down the law about what the WNBA has to do for Caitlin Clark to compete in that league to assure that the nonsense that went on the first 2 years, one resulting in her injury, they've got to clean this up. This league is so pathetically inept at meeting the moment. It's just unbelievable much longer segment. But do you think they can get it together to
Well,
get themselves back on the right track?
you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, kill the golden goose. They tried to kill the golden goose when she came in the league because she made all of them wealthy.
Yes.
And like, what are you doing? This is, I always relate to back. This goes way back. Joe Namath made all
Yes.
these NFL players millionaires.
Yes.
And she was doing that for the rest of that league, and they just were working against her so adamantly. So I don't know the details of that contract, but it also, I don't know if a lot of people understand, the NBA supplements a lot of the WNBA.
They lost $40 million last year. The numbers were up. They lost $40 million. They lost money every year of their existence.
Right. So when you're trying to get, more salaries higher, you got to, it's the chicken or the egg theory. So you got to, it's got to be TV revenue, and they had eyeballs. Don't ruin what you had because there's so many eyeballs on those TV sets that, your TV contracts, which probably drives your ability to make money and those franchises to make money. You like you said, they're going to kill the golden goose. It's crazy to watch them do this.
It really is.
But, especially in this state, because this state we went from Carver Hawkeye Arena, which used to drop curtains over the top level to make the basketball arena look more enclosed for the women, to now they've had sellouts ever since Caitlin walked in the door. You can't get a ticket to an Iowa women's basketball
game. They outdraw the men's, and the men's are a 20-win team.
They outdraw the men's, and they outdraw the wrestling team, which is something to say, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, people who don't know wrestling in Iowa know that that's a huge accomplishment.
It's completely flipped the fan base and the interest in basketball. And now, those people travel to Indianapolis to see Caitlin Carr
play.
I mean, there's busloads of Iowa. I went to that game where they put the court at the end of the football stadium, Kinnick Stadium, exhibition against the DePaul. It was, Paul, you would have loved it. I never saw so many moms with little daughters just getting pictures. We had like a third row seat. They were all asking me to take a picture, and so they had the court in their background. It was the mom with the daughter. And I was taking a picture of the court back there. I mean, it was unbelievable how she's influenced a whole new wave of young females that want to be basketball players.
While at the same time, in spite of all the controversy, conducting herself with grace, maturity, and an impressive dignity to maintain and stay above this absolute piranha-fed nonsense that's going on around it. So,
well, I don't know who her PR person is, but she was, I don't know if she
should get paid a lot of money.
She was so good at avoiding all those trap questions they threw at her.
Absolutely.
She never would take the bait. It was amazing how well she was able to deflect those. Not only, even the political questions that she was getting. So, I think my claim to fame is I taught her mother history at Dowling High School in 1987. So I always say her mom knows her presidents.
That's great.
Actually, my brother played basketball with her dad at Simpson College, and they were like her dad was number 1 in the nation in Division III in 3-point percentage, and my brother was number 3. And like they were a 500 team. I think, dude, you guys should have won more games than that.
Well, they got up a lot of threes though and had a lot of fun. It sounds like.
Oh yeah.
So okay, final question. Sturtz, good enough to be a top 15 pick in the NBA?
I think he's just outside that.
Yep.
Paul, I think he's going to go around maybe 18, 19, 20 for when I read an NBA mock draft. But I tell you what has going for Sturtz, he's done a great story too, because Division II guy.
Yep.
If his coach doesn't take the job at Drake, does he still stay at Northwest Missouri State? We don't know about this great story. And then, Drake to Iowa. He's got going for him. He's 6'4", and he can play the point guard or the off guard. So I think that's another benefit to him. They're going to say, is he physical enough? He is so good with his basketball IQ that he's going to fit on a roster somewhere.
Off the charts. Yep. It kind of reminds me of Vidya from Portland. Kind of that big guard, very smart, get the ball into people's hands.
And this kid has stamina like you wouldn't. He's playing 40 minutes a game this whole season.
Yep.
And I read the story on him how his mother ran, I think she was a high jumper or a long jumper at Kansas State. So the whole family's got a track background. In the summers when they were kids, they would go to Colorado and they would run up mountains for fun. for fun. And he was, and I think he's got two other brothers that have engineering degrees from Kansas State. Kansas State really screwed up not recruiting this guy.
No kidding.
His grandparents went to school there. His parents did. His girlfriend was going to school there. She was a pom-pom girl. I did a game against Kansas State at T-Mobile, Kansas City. We had to go find out which one she was, the Kansas State cheerleader, and her boyfriend's playing for Drake. But anyway, his brothers were better than him. They're running up these mountains, so it kind of always was his motivation to be
well, you can see why he didn't get recruited at Kansas State, because they've been so good. Oh, that's right. They just fired their newest coach.
They just hired a coach from the Valley.
Oh, did they?
Casey Alexander from Belmont. So here's the last 3 years. You look at the Missouri Valley. So this year, Casey Alexander from Belmont's going to Kansas State. Last year we had Ben McCollum go to Iowa. The year before they had Josh Hurst go to St. Louis. Yep. So the Valley, that's another problem. If you're good in the mid-majors, your coach is going to get snagged by somebody.
Yep. And who was the coach that went from Drake to Indiana?
Darren DeVries at Indiana.
Yep. Iowa boy, small town Iowa boy.
So Drake has three coaches coaching in the Big Ten. Nico Medved at Minnesota also coached at Drake right before Darren came in.
Right.
So we always say Drake is the center of the basketball, the Big Ten coaching.
The nexus. Well, Kevin, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on again today. I hope we can do this again real soon during the tournament.
I forgot, because my other Zoom calls, I push a different button than on yours.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm sorry for getting on late.
It's okay. We'll get it done. We'll get it done again. Kevin Lehman, have a great March Madness experience, and we'll talk again real soon. And you've been listening.
Paul, you and tomorrow's my favorite day, Flex and Sunday. Enjoy filling out your bracket.
I'll tell you what, it's Christmas. It's the Vatican.
Yeah.
It's the Vatican for Catholics. So it's just the greatest day. So, Kevin Lehman joining us here on the Deep Dive on Hoop City with Paul Sir. We'll be right back